Imagine sharing a bank account, sharing dinner together every day, and then lying next to each other in bed at the end of the night and feeling like, when did we stop being so intimate? Like this gap, this void is growing, but it's the one thing that feels really uncomfortable to talk about. It leads many of us into what we know as a sexless marriage, but many of us don't want to admit or talk about this when we're having conversations with friends, but we can be thinking in our mind, oh my God, they really don't know actually what's going on in my relationship. In this video, I'm going to be sharing exactly why sexless marriages happen, how we get there, and ultimately how we fix this so that we can get back to feeling this sense of connection and desire, wanting each other, and feeling confident in our body. A recent study from the American Medical Association showed that between 15 to 20% of marriages are sexless, and that's just from people that have spoken about it. So I actually think the percentage is quite a bit higher than that, but 15 to 20% is still a huge number, and that's no sex at all. We then have marriages, of course, that are once a month it's happening, or once every so often. So why do sexless marriages happen? Let's go through 3 of the top reasons. The first is emotional disconnect. Emotional disconnect. So life gets busy, things happen. We have kids, we have businesses, work gets intense, whatever it may be. And imagine it like a battery. We start off in the morning with 100% of energy, and it goes down and down and down and down and down. And that final part is the part that we bring into the bedroom at night. And then we have this expectation that we should be able to just go straight back up to 80% or 100% recharged again and be able to perform. The reality is it doesn't work that way. That can sound obvious, but over years and years of this stacked, it then starts to become beliefs in our mind of, I don't know if I turn my partner on, or I don't know if they enjoy it, or I don't really feel desired by them. These types of stories we start to tell ourselves, and they become beliefs. And when there is this emotional disconnect, physical intimacy is the area that takes a hit. We start avoiding things in the bedroom, and then all of a sudden, before we know it, weeks, months, or years can go by, and it feels like there's this wall in between us, this thing that neither person really wants to address or talk about. Why? Because it feels vulnerable, it feels terrifying to be able to sit down and think, to have a conversation about sex with our partner. What if they don't like it? What if they don't want it? Then we feel rejected, so we'd rather avoid those kind of conversations. And this is even more intensified if we're experiencing sexual performance anxiety. So let me come on to that next. Sexless marriages, or avoiding intimacy because of performance anxiety. If you're anything like me and you've experienced performance anxiety, I think many guys actually have, but to a more intense degree. We know that this cycle starts of avoiding intimacy because of this fear of failing. We want to avoid feeling awkward or embarrassed in the bedroom. And so we either block intimacy, or we try and push and force ourselves, and it doesn't go to plan again. And we start asking ourselves the what if questions. What if I can't stay hard? Or what if I can't climax? What if they're not satisfied? And all the time we're just losing connection, losing presence with our partner in the moment. And then where does that lead to? Often it leads to thinking, what's the point? Why should I even try initiating if I know this is just going to happen again? And so it turns into more of a platonic relationship, a friendship, as opposed to an intimate, romantic connection. And so the days turn into weeks, the weeks turn into months, the months turn into years, and before we know it, there's the recipe for a sexless marriage. It's logical why in the moment we want to avoid intimacy, because nobody wants to feel inadequate or awkward in the bedroom. But then there's also this part of us that wants to be able to build back this feeling of desire, this spark that wants to get back to how things used to be. The third reason that leads to sexless marriages is unrealistic expectations. Now, often this is internal pressure, but it comes from societal expectations. Most of our sex education, unfortunately, is what we see on porn, sometimes on the TV. But there is this picture painted, and I'm going to speak specifically about men, always been able to perform, always been ready. This is what we tell ourselves because it's what we have grown up seeing and believing. And then we start to come up with things in our mind like, I must be doing it once a week. I've got to satisfy them, I've got to make this happen, or I must prove to myself that I'm a man still. And all this does is create anxiety, and it creates stress and pressure. And guess what? That is the enemy of intimacy. Anxiety, stress, pressure is the enemy of intimacy. And whilst this happens, whilst we imagine these false expectations, and most of us, like 99% of us, we don't have sex in the same way as porn. We're not able to instantly, at the drop of a hat, get hard, stay hard, ready to perform, let's go right now. But because that's what we believe of how we should be, then it comes to the reality and we think that we're not satisfying our partner, or we're not able to do it in the way that we should be able to do it. We start to question ourselves and we start to withdraw, we start to detract. And that means the more we do that, the less likely we are to connect with our partner naturally, because we're not accepting ourselves. So how do we fix this? Well, as I was going through those 3 examples, if you related to the sexual performance anxiety part, and now that's what I'm going to focus in on. First is recognizing that sexual performance anxiety plays a significant role and a logical role in why a marriage, a relationship, may become sexless or have really infrequent sex. It's not just about not wanting sex. It's not really about that, because we want sex. It's about the fear of what might happen if things don't go to plan. And the key to understanding this is knowing that our body has 2 systems. We know them as fight and flight and our calm state. And when we're experiencing anxiety in the bedroom, it's our fight and flight state that's activated, and our body is responding, it's acting how it should be acting in that moment, even though it's what we don't want. So our job is to be able to learn a new code. Right now, sex equals this stress and fight and flight state. So what we need to do is figure out, okay, how do we change that code from sex equals fight and flight to sex equals calm, sex equals fun, sex equals enjoyment? One of the biggest mistakes that we as men make, and I know because I made this myself, is just for so long trying to think that we've got to push through, we've got to force ourselves to be able to get this sorted, when that's actually the very thing that makes the situation worse. So what must we avoid doing? And this is where I'd like to share with you the number 1 mistake guide. This is a free guide that I've put together. This will show you the number 1 mistake that men make that leads to performance anxiety in the bedroom. If you are tired of feeling disconnected, of feeling this lack of desire, this like the spark has gone out and you want to bring it back, then this number 1 mistake guide is the right place to start, so that you can avoid making this same mistake. If this sounds good to you personally and resonates with you, then head into the comment section below. You'll see the link to the number 1 mistake guide. Click on that link, it will take you straight to the page where you get access to the free guide, and I will see you right there.